Hey guys, it's Jacob with CHOutdoors. Welcome to a new segment we're calling Storytime. Here with me is the new addition to CHOutdoors, Brian Hirschfeld. Yeah, so let's kind of talk through what are we going to do on this segment, this story time. We're going to have a bunch of new people come in. We're going to do this a couple times a month, probably twice a month. But what are we doing on here? What is this segment for?
So basically, it kind of mirrors if you've ever been in a deer camp or with your buddies or whatever around a bar, around a campfire, there's always stories that are going to come out that we're going to be discussing. And obviously, there's lots of things you learn from it. There's lots of failures, there's lots of successes, there's lots of just good times to be had. So we figured, a great way to engage with our audience is to share some of our stories. Hopefully, the listeners will chime back in with some of their own.
That sounds easy enough. We all have enough stories under our belt already of successes, of failures, of falling on your face, sometimes literally, sometimes metaphorically, um, getting stabbed in the inner thigh, falling off a tree in
Breaking a
Colorado.
tripod, whatever.
Yes. Some tack stories, some hunting stories,
Yeah,
some generalized outdoor stuff. One of the things I want to do on this video here before we get too far is I do want to introduce CHOutdoors' first ever sponsor. We have an ambassadorship through the outdoor group with several archery brands, including Elite Archery, Scott Archery, Ultra Arrows, and more. But we have our first official sponsorship, and that is W Energy Drink. W is a powder-based energy drink and rehydrating drink that is phenomenal. I've been using it for about a week now. I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to promote something, it's something that I actually truly believe in, something that works. W is a powdered energy drink that replaces other inferior caffeine beverages. Contains zero, I'm too dumb for that word, uh, maltodextrin, zero fillers, zero artificial colors or dyes, no proprietary blends. The star of the show is our coffee fruit extract, which helps you focus with no jitters or crash. I can tell you this is not the coffee fruit. This is the which one is this? The Japanese soda here. I'm really enjoying it.
nice.
Got myself a nice little shaker bottle here. Thank you to our first sponsor, W Energy Drinks. So Brian, why don't we talk about how we met? Because we met
Hmm.
through kind of this life. We shouldn't have met. There's no reason other than the love of the outdoors and specifically archery that you and I should know each other. We live hundreds of miles apart. How did we meet? Where do you live?
You're right. It is a complete chance interaction that we came to have our paths collide. But a few years back, I want to say 2022, I went to my first TAC event. I brought my cousin and my oldest son with me because we've been doing archery for years, obviously, and I keep hearing about those types of events. And I thought it sounded interesting and wanted to see, if it stacked up to all the hype, but also we were planning on going on some Western hunts, and that we were told this is a great way to prep for that. So we went ahead and headed out to Tennessee. I live in St. Louis. There was about I don't remember, 5, 6 hour drive or whatever to get over there. We signed up a little bit late, so we actually had to go out to the primitive camping, which basically means a large grass lot that wasn't cut very short, turns out, and pitch a tent and be able to camp out there for a couple of days. How we met was actually you guys camped right next to us. Obviously, there was no coordination, it was a complete happenstance. There were no campsites that were even marked. You had a couple of your puppies with you. I believe, Winchester was one of those. And do you remember which other dog was it that year?
It was Beretta.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember it being the name Beretta, but you haven't had that dog pretty much since that tag. It was later that year.
Yeah, she passed not too long after that from a birth defect heart arrhythmia. So we only had Beretta for a short period of time. And
Yeah.
I have five dogs now. I've had up to nine. And we've fostered and adopted out and multiple things. And so after a short period of time, my wife finally put her foot down and said, "Hey, no more than five at a time." And since then, she goes, "Well, hey, once the older ones pass on, we're going to go down to three, no more than three."
Funny, I had the
And
exact same rule at our house. My wife, I put my foot down when we had 5 kids. Yeah, so I actually did have my oldest with me on that trip. So I noticed the dogs right away. And I do also immediately remember that they had outdoors or, firearm names. So I was like, oh, we're going to be friends. What did you notice? I don't remember. I want to say we got there before you did, if I'm not
you got
mistaken.
there before us, and you have this monstrosity of a tent. Makes sense. You have 5 children.
Mhm.
And I mean, this was a half a single wide trailer that you have. And so I noticed the monstrosity of a tent for 3 people, and we're sitting in a 3-person Ozark Trail tent. And it's Tennessee in early May, so yeah, it's 90 degrees. It's like it is right now. You're going to see me wiping sweat off and doing stuff. Probably about the same temperature as it was now, maybe a little bit cooler, maybe, but it was probably in the high 80s, low 90s. I remember it stormed that trip, and so the humidity level is probably what it is right now, which is 93% humidity. I remember looking at that going, you know what? That's probably a good idea. You can put fans in there. It even had lights on it,
Oh
which was
yeah,
pretty
it was
slick.
a 10-person tent. That's the
10
size of
person
it.
tent.
So bit
Yeah.
overkill, but I do remember that. In fact, this shirt I'm wearing is from that event.
The OG. And this is
Hmm.
from
This year.
2026, this year. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
We've got all the
um,
ones in between. And I just like you, I imagine a lot of those shirts in just kind of roll into my usual rotation because they're
they're
actually pretty nice
most of the
shirts.
shirts I wear on a day to day. After that, I noticed, on the same leg of the giant tent, what is not shown in this screen in this image right here, or in videos that we've already put out on CH Outdoors with you, without anybody next to you, is the size of you.
Mm-hmm.
You're a large human. You're a
Above
very
average,
large
you know.
human. Uh,
Mhm. It's
what
all
a
muscle.
tall muscle. Yep. You're what, 6'7"?
6'6" and change, barefoot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
6'7" in the
So,
army.
okay. And roundabout, what do you weigh?
Oh, I'm 340 easy.
Okay. Yeah. 6'7", 340. You're a mountain of a man. I think you had a block target. There's
It
something
was
we started
Joe.
shooting together for a moment.
It was my cousin's block target. My cousin and I, we pretty much all the hunting stories. He'll be probably featured on a lot of these in upcoming episodes. Probably even pull him onto camera against his will. But he and I have done sorts of outdoor stuff with his camping, shooting, fishing, hunting, whatever. He was there with his block target that year, I believe, and his little mini bike or whatever that my
Oh yeah,
son
yeah,
was
the
riding
mini
around
bikes.
on.
I remember that.
Hmm.
So we kind of got into that, and that's how we actually met. Was I needed to shoot outside of the practice range. It was your first tack. I didn't know this at the time. It was my first tack, so I was nervous, and I didn't want to go up to the practice range and shoot immediately. I wanted just to confirm everything, and I forgot my target. So I asked you if we could, if I could shoot at your target, shoot in with you guys there for a little bit. And we got talking before we started shooting, which we didn't shoot together that year because obviously we
We
were
didn't.
signed up for different courses at different times on different days. We became great friends afterwards. Obviously, to this day, we're partners now. Uh,
Hmm.
and what really prompted a lot of that was you had told me that you guys go elk hunting DIY over the counter every year. Hadn't gotten an elk yet, but had just started doing it a year or two prior, somewhere around there. And I had just dreamed that was a bucket list for me. But I always thought you needed, if you didn't have $25,000 to go out west, then you weren't going elk hunt.
Hmm.
That's just what I always thought of it. And I think I mentioned something along those lines to you, and you looked at me like I was insane.
Hmm.
And you're like, no, we do it for a heck of a lot less than that.
Yeah,
Not
probably
even in
about
the same ballpark.
500 or
Yeah.
something like that.
So,
Big difference. Yeah, at that time, we had gone on one archery elk adventure. We also had tags in our pocket for bear and cougar. It was actually for the state of Oregon. And in that state, it's an at the time was over the counter. So you didn't have to do a drawing or anything like that. You just had to pay your money. I want to say it was 600 something dollars at the time. We bought one tag because we figured it'd be hard enough for one of us to shoot one, let alone both of us. So we're doing a whole shooting calling scenario thing as a team. And then we went ahead and had the other tags because they were super cheap. But then we came up empty. That's a whole other story. Maybe we'll get into it at some point. Um, but we planned a hunt the following year in Utah, which again was an over-the-counter opportunity. But some things happened at home that we probably won't get into that kind of kiboshed that, both for him and for me simultaneously. So it's kind of like, well, someone's giving us a sign we need to skip this year. And then I don't know if it was the very next year or the year after that is when we met up at this TAC event, and we had already planned on going that following fall because TAC was in like beginning of
It
May,
may.
I
Yeah.
believe, and we had already planned to go out that the August, early September, out to Colorado this time. You had mentioned that you wanted to go with us, and at the time, I did kind of step away from the conversation at some point before I initially just said, "Hey, why don't you come with us?" And I talked to Joe, and I wanted to make sure that, for whatever reason, he was cool with it or anything like that. And then I think later that same day, I had mentioned to you as like, "Hey, you said you really wanted to go with us. Why don't you come with us this year?" And just that look of kid in a candy store that was on your face uh, was priceless. Little scary. Because you were 100% game for it, even though we had met 24 hours earlier.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that like the back of my hand. I mean, remember we were sitting on your tailgate or Joe's tailgate, something like that, and kind of threw it out there like, "Hey, why don't you come this year?" And I know part of it at that point in time, and we've talked about this in the past, was you were A, trying to be nice, and B, really didn't believe that some stranger would just go with you guys on a backcountry elk hunt, at any point in time based off of knowing somebody for less than 24 hours. But what you didn't know is how into this I am. And, and so I went back, I talked to my wife, talked to Micah, and said, "Hey, I'm going elk hunting in August." And she goes, "Okay, what are the details?" I go, "I don't know. I'm just know that I'm going. I don't know what it's going to cost. I don't know what it's going to be, but just so you know, this is happening. I'm going to make this happen."
We had done a lot of e-scouting prior to the trip, as most people do when they're out of state. So we're on maps, we're doing some forums. I actually called some wildlife biologists and I called some game wardens in the area, just kind of say, "Hey, here's the plan I came up with. Is that a dumb idea? Am I wasting my time?" Because no one's just going to come out and just give you their honey holes, obviously, and that defeats the point of it. But we had a lot of ideas and ABC plans going out there. But the idea was to Jacob, you were actually going to meet at our house or my house that Friday afternoon, opening day Saturday, and you were already 6 hours into the trip when you get to me and we had another 14, 15 hours ahead of us.
Oh,
Because
it's more than that. It's 16 and a half. And that year it was 18 and a half because we went around up through Steamboat Springs to the backside
hmm Yeah,
is
we
where
were
we
on
started.
a different unit that year starting. We started in the rough area that we had wanted to start at. And, or actually, I take that back. When I was saying that earlier, Joe and I had been on an elk hunt in Oregon and one elk hunt in Colorado. Then that next spring, we met you. So we'd been elk hunting twice, and a third one was planned that never came out of it. So when we were going to drive through the night, Joe was driving in his truck. It was a crew cab, but we had a lot of stuff packed. I actually brought my oldest son on that trip with us, which we did not know was going to happen when I had met you at TAC. That wasn't in the cards. That was
And
a
it's noteworthy to mention how old was he at this point in time?
He was getting ready to turn 13, so
Yeah,
he was 12.
on a backcountry elk hunt with a stranger, a literal stranger, and a child.
And in fact, you guys were in the back seat together and fell asleep next to each other. I still have that photo. Uh,
Oh, we should put that up here. If we have that photo, we got to put it up here.
and then Joe and I were in the front seat driving. Joe's a bit of a an alpha, so no one else is going to be driving that trip but him. But
Hey, I'm all for it.
yeah, he and
I'm
I
all for it.
were up the entire time. We had done that on our previous Colorado trip. I don't sleep well in vehicles, partly because I don't trust a lot of other people driving. I do trust him driving it. I would trust you driving it. It's just if I'm going to be there, I'm way too excited. I'm not going to be able to pass out. You had already driven 6 hours and woke up early that morning, so it's a different story for you. But I know when we got to the trailhead that next morning, it was pretty much a grab your stuff, let's get on the trail, let's get out there and get going. And at the time, back then, we were, I don't know if naive, stupid, whatever the word is, but we had the plans of putting everything on our bags, or our backs in our bags, going up to this tallest part of the mountain, and not coming back to the truck for a few days. Bring all of our food, all of our water, all of our gear, our tents, everything, and having a heck of a hike and wearing ourselves out. And I guess at the time, only thing that ever would have happened is we would have spooked an elk and maybe chased it down later. It wasn't the best strategy. Come to find out later on. Great for stories, but we weren't going to shoot nothing.
And that's kind of that's exactly what we did, and that's what we did for 2 years in a row. And we had that exact thing here. I'm sure we'll get to it in the timeline, but spoiler no spoilers. We saw elk, and if nothing else, you saw elk in Oregon, right?
We saw elk in Oregon and the first year in
Yeah.
Colorado.
So there's not been a time where you've been in the elk woods and not seen elk.
That is correct.
And I have not been in the elk woods and not seen elk either. So yeah, we get out there, little to no sleep over 36 hours driving, dealing with altitude. We get to what we're going to call base camp here, and which was at the time what we also didn't know, and part of the reason why we moved later on. This was one of the largest, most populated through hiking trails across the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah, it was a Continental Divide trail. Maybe people have heard of
Yeah.
it.
So we camped smack dab right on the trailhead of Continental Divide Trail. And we just, I mean, from moment one, people walking through, dirt bikes going through, and just the last thing you want to see when you're out in the wilderness.
There's grandmas with the little hydro packs and their little walking sticks walking right past us, like, where, where did they
Like
come
it's
from?
nothing, too. Like
Yeah.
it's nothing while
Ugh.
we're dying. Your son immediately, within a quarter mile of camp on our first pack, altitude sickness.
Yeah, so we parked the truck and then we still had to go up a trail to be able to get to a glassing point that we had picked prior to from our e-scouting. And it
I
was
remember
on
the
that
elevation.
hike going up there.
Yeah, I remember the elevation gain. It wasn't some elevation. It was a mile and a half hike with a over 1,000 foot of elevation gain in a mile and a half. We start hiking, we go up, and I remember, I mean, I have that trail in my head just so vividly. It's this windy trail. I mean, it's a very popular through hiking trail, so it's maintained, meaning there's no, it's just dirt and rock, but it's almost like steps.
Yeah.
And it was gnarly. And my pack at that time, because we were weighing our packs, I think my pack at that time was in the low 70 pounds, um, with all the gear in it. Because I'm an overpacker. If anybody goes back and watches the Alaska packing trip from a couple weeks ago, the I don't underpack ever. Um,
Yeah. And that changed for us when I was still in St. Louis prepping for that trip. Or no, it was probably the trip prior to that when it was just Joe and I. I put everything. I had fishing stuff in my pack. I had like there wasn't a pocket that wasn't stuffed to the gill, and I was just like, oh well, if there's room for it, might as well bring it. Until you put that pack on, it was 83 pounds. And I didn't even leave my basement. I started shedding stuff out of there. So we already had a little bit of a learned my lesson prior to that trip, a lesson you had not yet, but have since learned. And I think both of our packs now are so dwindled down.
The packing, and this is important to say for anybody watching that hasn't done this before. Backpacking is a game of financial fortitude. You don't buy better gear for more expensive. You buy lighter gear for more expensive.
Mhm.
And that the ultralight gear is ridiculously expensive. I mean, I we have what our camp stove is $20, but you can buy a lighter one for $200.
Mhm.
You can buy a lighter tent that works the same as our tent, like the 2-person tent that we have. And I don't remember the brand of it off the top of my head here. That's a great tent. It works. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's like 6 pounds. You can get a pound and a half tent, but it's going to cost you $500, $700.
Mhm.
So backpacking, you might have all the correct gear, but if you're not in that tax bracket, you're you our packs right now are still over 50 pounds
Oh yeah.
because we haven't bought the ultralight stuff. We can get that 53-pound pack, 52-pound pack, whatever it is. We'll weigh it upcoming here for this year. And we that same pack, if you had the money for it, you can turn into a 24-pound pack.
Yeah, that was actually the one year when Adam was with me in our tent together. I actually wasn't using a sleeping bag. I was using a collaboration of the different blankets that I thought I was being smart because they packed better and they packed better than my sleeping bag at the time. But I almost died on that trip. Not as much as I almost died the following year, even worse. But I went on the way home. I think from that trip, I was on Amazon finding a sleeping bag like you're talking about that packs into the size of a softball, and it was some money, but way lighter and way
Oh
warm.
yeah, yeah.
Not even
It,
close.
I don't even know if I had a pad that year. I can't remember if I did or not. I
I
might
think
have just
we
been
had
sleeping on the
one that
ground.
broke, so I think it was basically just a tarp at that point. It was pretty flat.
So we get there, we go up this hill, and we find this beautiful glassing point. Your son gets sick, so you stay back with him. No, Joe stays
Yeah,
back with him.
because you
Joe
and
stays
I
back
had
with
the
him.
elk tags, so we went
Yep,
on ahead. And
yep.
obviously, he knows his uncle very well, so it wasn't any issue to be left with him. And we did get up to the point, and it was beautiful. We can see all the areas that we found out later were the guided hunt camps that were
Yep.
out there to our left.
Miles away. We're looking
Yeah,
miles.
yeah. So we could see them. And I can't remember if it was the first day you guys saw that trophy?
The moose.
Yeah,
That was the first day because you went on a walkabout. We sat there for about an hour, glassing, looking, and then you went on a walkabout, went down to the edge of this peak because we saw some stuff on the map that maybe you could see down and maybe we could get after. We had delusions of grandeur on this trip where we were going to walk, hey, 8, 9 miles, and people do that hunt all the time. They're walking 8, 9 miles through the mountains, and I have zero shame in saying that, you know what, I'm just not that in shape. And I'm with that elevation and all that. No, we do a couple miles. Now, on this trip, we did end up doing an 8 mile day. One day we did a 6 mile day, another day, kind of like incrementally. It was 8 miles, it was 6 miles, it was 4 miles, it was 3 miles. We started just kind of huddling up around these areas that started to look good. And we also learned what looked good and what didn't.
how it
Uh,
translated from the map to real life.
Yeah, yeah. I think we were camping at 9,000 feet, and I think the peak of the mountain was 12,000. I think we hung out quite a bit around 10,500. We found some good sign. We went up. We had lunch at the top of the mountain one day, in that little puddle of trees, if you remember that. And there was the elk beds there, and then a wallow, which we didn't know. We didn't know. We left that wallow. Absolutely all the love in the world to Joe. This is not meant to be an insult at all. Joe was the kind of the dedicated caller for you guys. He had a couple calls and he had gotten real good at it. But this is very much so, and I know this now as being able to call elk enough. I'm by no means a world class caller. It is a muscle that I need to start practicing again for this year, and it is very much use it or lose it.
Hmm.
You can't just leave the elk woods one year, 365 days later, come back, and that's the first time you blow a bugle and expect that bugle to sound good.
Yeah, you had to kind of throw aside, your ego and your humility because there's also not a great way of practicing that without annoying somebody. The only thing that people have ever talked about is like bugling while you're driving by yourself in a car, and even then it's distracting to do so, but you're pissing off neighbors or your spouse or waking up the kids. So I get it. It's very hard to practice the bugle. The cow call, I think we've all gotten good at that. It doesn't take very long, whether you have a mouth read call, which I like using, or the little devices or whatever, but those are a lot quieter than the bugles for sure.
Yeah. So we go out there and very quickly, we're practicing in the car and on the way out. Joe rips a couple good ones, but we're like, hey, we need to practice this more. We get into the woods. What you don't realize is, hey, in the car, you're ripping some good ones there, but you're sitting down. Your heart rate's not up. You're not at elevation yet. Um,
Mouth's not dry.
Mouth's not dry. So we get out there and we find some fresh elk sign. Uh, Joe starts ripping some bugles, and I don't even think it was more than one day. He he goes, all right, I'm putting this in the pack, and we're not busting it out again because we just couldn't rip one. Not even cow calls. I mean, we're huffing and puffing. We got the idea of what it is to be out there at elevation very quickly. None of us other than your son got sick, but it's a different world. The air's thin. The air's thin.
Oh, for sure. I've never gotten altitude sickness in any of the years I've been out west, but yeah, for sure you feel it in your lungs, or the lack of it in your lungs for that matter. But yeah, I think it only takes, and it's happened to you, and it has not happened to me because I don't do it because I'm deathly afraid to bugle, at least with other humans around. But sometimes you can rip off three or four good ones in a row, but you get one that's dog whatever, you kind of want to put it away and never bring it back out. So it's a mental game too.
What were you looking for in e-scouting, and why did we target these areas? Because we found these elk
Mhm.
exactly where you thought we were going to find elk. Maybe not the exact point on the map, but in these different bullet points of what you look for, that's where we found these. Do
Yeah.
you remember what you look for?
So, and I don't know if it's really changed a whole lot over the years, but some nuances is one, I'm looking for elevation, especially because during archery season, it's still relatively hot out compared to like snow being on the ground. So you want to get up higher because that's where the elk are going to stay cooler. But also to keep them cool, they need water. They need wallows, they need rivers, streams, whatever, either to drink from or to bathe in or both. And I was also looking for dark green color because usually those are on the north facing slopes just because of how the sun and everything in the north hemisphere. But the north facing slopes, the dark timber, and patches of fields or meadows, especially if there's going to be a lot of like benches around. Um, bench being where it's kind of going uphill, then it levels off, then goes uphill some more. They like traveling on those shelves and things like that too. And I think where we found the elk this one day, all four of us were traveling together, and we were going downhill, somewhat of a steep hill. And I remember there being all kinds of game trails just passing back and forth, left and right, that we were intersecting. And we were being fairly quiet. I don't know if I was in the front, maybe you were ahead of me.
No, I was right behind you. So you were point, and Adam was next to me. So we were 2 and 2. It was you and Joe and me and
Okay.
Adam.
There's somebody that was right next to me. And we were walking down, and somebody, I want to say it was probably Joe, since he was up in front, was saying, there's elk, everybody freeze. And so I stopped. I had my bow in my hand. I'm not the type to pack my bow on my backpack or anything. To me, it's got to be in your hand, or what's the point? Even though my bow's quite heavy. So I had my bow there, and I was getting ready to try and knock. And I look down and I spot what he sees. And I'll give you a chance to do your perspective with Adam behind me in a sec. I saw a big cow elk. At this time, I didn't see anything else. I just saw a cow elk. She was broadside. She was 50 yards, 49, whatever it was, well within my wheelhouse. Um, and she was staring straight at me. So I did not want to be the one that screwed up this opportunity because at that time, yeah, we wanted trophy, but we wanted meat. We wanted success of some sort. So I had no problems taking this cow. I wasn't able to knock and draw back because she was looking at me. And then as soon as she kind of like took a half step, her head was behind a tree, I knocked and began to draw back. And then she walked away. And so I let back down. And then at some point right afterwards, which you can explain, we heard them tearing off down the hill. And that's when I found out there was more than just the one. So what did you see from your end?
You were in front of me. We've already determined you're a large human. I didn't see much. I don't know if I'm the one who messed that up because Joe told you, hey, there's elk, shh. And I didn't hear that for a while. So I was still kind of halfway talking for a couple seconds. I'm looking, I'm trying to see something. I don't see anything. And like you said, they're 50 yards, something like that, and I can't see anything. I have no idea. I start looking and I see a tail flick. That's when I go, oh shit, there actually is elk there. And then I see another tail flick. So I see another baby. You're in the way because I'm trying to hide behind you. I'm also trying because I don't see you grabbing a bow. So I try to use you as a giant tree, hide behind you and start getting my stuff ready because I don't see anybody else getting anything ready. I'm like, well, I got a big blockade in front of me. Let's try to set something up here. The moment I start doing that, that's when and then I peek my head out from around you here, and I see them all tearing off.
So we did find out that there was a mom and at least two babies, and
Yeah.
they took off farther down the hill and they went to the left. So at that point, obviously you're not gonna catch up to an elk by running after them. I decided to go straight down to where we found out was a wallow, and that's probably the wallow you were talking about a second ago. I was thinking of a different one.
No. So they went up. We went down to the swamp, lake, pond, whatever that is. They went up the mountain, which is why we decided not to chase after them because we cannot chase an elk up the mountain. And they got all the way
that
up.
time,
They went up to the wallow.
well, I went down to, well, there were some wallows that were down there too. You didn't go as far down as we did, I don't think, because you actually went more. I went down and you went straight left to kind of cut
To the
them
creek.
off.
Yeah,
And
because
you
they were
actually
bedded on
saw
the edge of the
them
creek.
pass you going back up the hill, but we couldn't see that from where we were because we went down elevation. So it
Yep.
wasn't until we met back up a few, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes later that you were like, I don't know what you guys are looking for. They went that way. We're like, oh, well, because we didn't see that. They're like, well,
Yeah,
they
they
went
crossed this
straight up
big
that hill.
creek. They crossed this big creek, which is where they're bedded next to. North facing slope, dark timber with not a lot of vegetation on the ground. It was all just like, pine needles and such. Um, a couple flat spots, not big flat spots, but flat enough for them to like lay down right next to the running river creek so they could drink out of it. And the temperature was noticeably different within 20 yards of that creek. Uh, and and so they crossed that and then tore up the hill. So that was, I mean, elk at 50 yards. My first elk trip out of this, fantastic.
Mhm.
We decided to then cut down this creek. So the creek runs down the mountain. It goes to this wetland area with a little bit of like I'm going to call it a pond, probably 2-acre pond. And then Joe and I went around, and this is where Joe put up the call for the whole trip. He said, we're done. And we tried to rip a couple bugles, and through that process, we were never going to see elk again. And so the second or third one that he ripped, he got about a quarter second into it. And he goes, yeah, nope, throwing this in the pack. We're done. We're leaving that camp.
This is still the spot of the first campsite.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is still Continental Divide Trail. This had to be no more than 3 days in. It was 2 days in because the third day we went back after them.
Mm-hmm.
We found that little ravine that we posted up at in the evening time, and that you could see left and right. It was this nice old valley. It was wetland. There's some small streams running through. We go, okay, let's walk around, let's try to find these things. If we don't, let's post up here for the evening, for sundown, prime time. And if we don't see anything here, we've seen enough dirt bikers and through hikers and guys on 4x4s and, all this stuff that we're just going to pack up, get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's essentially what we did. We sat there, we gave ourselves some really good opportunities. I want to even say I was tried to rip a couple bugles because that was the same time when we were overlooking that ravine that we heard some really good bugles turned out to be a hunter.
Yes, it was across the way, and it was one of those things where it's like we've always been told if you hear a bugle, you can tell if it's a hunter or if it's an elk. And at the time, we hadn't heard enough of them in the wild to be able to trust ourselves. But we've also found out later on that some of the crappiest bugles are actually the elk. If it sounds too perfect, that's just a guy who's been practicing, and even the elk gets spooked sometimes by that.
No, but remember, before we packed up, well after dark, we met the guy that was bugling. He came through down because we're camped at the trailhead, and so that's how we figured out that it was a guy, and that after a couple bugles, he thought that our shitty bugles were an elk, and then we ripped off enough super shitty ones where he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm done. This is another hunter that doesn't know what they're doing," which was 100% true.
Yeah, spot on.
So it's spot on. So we pack up and we go over to this other area, up and around, going to Wyoming, come back down. And
Part of that, hold on a second. So this is important for later videos. We had, A, B, C, D plans when we started the trip. We started off in the bottom, we'll just call it the bottom left of the little map I have in my head. And that's where the content of that trail was. I had already marked 3 other parking spots that we could try and test out. And to get there, you did have to go north, get into Wyoming, and then it came back down into Colorado and dipped in. The first one we went to, I think, is the one that we kept going back to years later. It was on the north end of some areas that there was one parking spot. And when we got there, there was already a vehicle there. And there was just a lone, I don't know, maybe he was in his 60s, guy who was hunting by himself. I think he was relatively local, or at least he's been coming here for a while. And there was a big burnout area because at the time we were looking for burned areas, for reprod and stuff like that for them to eat on. And he was like, "Oh, there's one bull back there that we're chasing, or I'm chasing." Um, and I've been playing with him pretty much every day. There's just one elk back there, and I don't even know what I'm going to do if I ever shoot him. It's going to be a nightmare getting him out of there. To be honest with you guys, I probably wouldn't even waste your time at this spot, at least not this year. So we thought he was doing us a favor. Well, Joe and I thought he was doing us a favor. Jacob read straight through him from the get-go. But the bottom line that year is we left and checked out the other parking areas and found a really cool campsite, which is where we do end up camping for the second half of this trip.
And a really good area, and we still kind of poke our heads into this area every year we go back. We're not seeing anything because it is a good spot. We haven't seen elk there yet. We see elk sign. It's usually old. But I mean, great spot, bunch of different topography, wetlands. You can go up the mountain a couple thousand feet and camp on top, which is what we did this year, which is where we got our grouse. Which part of elk hunting, to me, one of my favorite parts of elk hunting is actually grouse hunting because you're not actually hunting them. You just happen to see them on your walk and shoot them with a bow. We got up to there, and I took that trip. I took one of my crowning achievement shots I've ever taken with a bow. Dip down to one knee, shoot through a pine tree, roughly a volleyball size hole in a pine tree, to a perch on a tree behind that pine tree where this grouse was sitting. Smoked it. We got to eat grouse. So we go up this hill. What happened to your son at the top?
We weren't even all the way up at the ridge yet, but we'd been hiking for a couple of hours, or maybe it felt like that. Maybe it's only an hour and a half. And we got to a spot where we were going to take a break. Well, Adam decides to sit down to take a break, and he didn't stand back up. He was kind of out for the count, and not so much like tired, sleepy. His body just kind of shut down on him. At the time, he did have a backpack on, but it was mostly a sleeping bag, and then I think some rocks, which is a brilliant move. He found some rocks that he wanted to keep, and granted, they're awesome, rose quartz and some other stuff. We still have them to this day. He went a little crazy with it, not realizing how heavy that pack was going to get, I guess. And for a younger child with a thin frame, he was struggle busting it a little bit. We got him, ready to continue, but we all kind of agreed without saying anything that we probably need to figure out a solution for his pack. So while I was trying to figure out a way of clipping it on my pack, which is already full, and I knew Jacob's was overflowing, Joe just said, screw it, and he put the pack on his chest, his pack on his back, and just said, let's go. And he had his like bow was even packed away, and he had his walking
Yep.
sticks out. And I still do have my photo, and I know I have that photo because it's the photo that pulls up every time he calls me. So Adam got to walk up the rest of that way free and clear. Not that he wasn't struggling still, but at least he was able to make it up there.
That's when we decided to cook the grouse that I had shot. I did take some stuff out and leave it in the truck. And one of the things I took out was my little camp cook pan, the thing we were specifically going to use to cook grouse. So we get up there, we finally have a grouse, and no way to cook it. This is one of my favorite parts of this trip was up in the Rocky Mountains. There's a bunch of large, super flat rocks.
Yeah, like shale.
Like shale, yeah. And so what we did was we breasted out this grouse. And at the time I had like MRE, not even MRE style. They were like apocalyptic style dry food. But what I didn't know is they weren't instant like MREs or the mountain houses. They were like you had to cook it for a long time.
Like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Opted not to use that. And we took this shale, we built a little stove essentially, put our rocket stove underneath it, and heated up this rock and breasted it out and cooked the breast of this grouse on the rock. There's only one meal I remember ever being better than that, and it was a pheasant that was cooked over a wood burning stove in a plastic bag with broth in it, like about an inch worth of broth, and it was cooked over there. We went on a pheasant hunt. We cooked that all morning, came back in, essentially like it wasn't smoked, it was just like radiant heat cooked, whatever. But that and the grouse, top two favorite game dishes. Whatever Steven Ranella will eat, I'll eat it. I'm waiting on my coyote. So I'll eat anything, and I've made quite a few good things. That one, number two best meal I've ever had.
Well, anybody watching this, if they've ever been camping or hiking or done anything out in the woods for an extended period of time where you have to actually cook your meals out there and not like you brought it from Walmart or Schnucks or anything. Those meals that you get to cook at the end of one of those exhausting days, it literally could be stuff that you'll throw in the trash back at home, but out there on the mountain, it is the best thing you've ever eaten. And then you couple that with something that's actually excellent to eat, like a grouse, then yeah, that I agree.
I don't know, I'm a cooking kind of aficionado, outdoor, wild game stuff. So that was the first time we had grouse, and every year I try to get better every year. And when we talk about the story in the next episode about you on the verge of hypothermia while having COVID, and then I made while you guys napped, I went out and killed grouse and cooked that. Stay tuned for that video because that's a good one. That's
Especially
a good
the
story.
next morning, what we found. That's a good one. This is actually, we're, over halfway into this trip already. Still the first year we've met each other. Like we've only known each other less than 6 months.
Oh yeah, less than 6 months.
4 months. Whatever May to September is. And you'll remember this, kind of, we've talked about this. There was a secondary glassing point off that mountain that we went to for a couple of days. Not as good as the first one at the other Continental Divide Trail, but we sat there overlooking some area where there's a lot of pockets of trees, a lot of good glassing points. And you and I were sitting there. Joe and my son were off checking out another spot, or maybe they were looking for water. I forgot what they were doing that specific time, but for whatever reason, I was exhausted and vulnerable, whatever, and I just started just word vomiting all of my personal stuff to you, and I opened up about stuff that was going on in my life. What did that time that we were doing that up on that mountain mean to you?
That I'm getting a little bit some heavy stuff here, which I like. I like it. That was, especially looking back on it. Maybe I didn't realize it in the moment, but that conversation changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, that conversation was literally life changing. Wasn't designed to be, it wasn't supposed to be. That was the start of you and me becoming the level of friends that we are today. That was at the time I ran my own contracting company. So I'd been a contractor for my entire life, and this is my second business that I ran at the time. I think I was 3 years into it at that point in time, and you were in sales, and it changed my career path. Those conversations on that hillside, it changed how I thought interpersonal relationships, it changed what I thought about friendships, it changed what I thought about hunting. I mean, it weirdly enough, and again, I didn't realize this at the time, but that conversation changed my life.
In the moment, it was like, oh, well, we're gonna be great friends going forward. But yes, looking back on it, that was kind of the pivotal moment where you can like put a pin in the timeline of life or
Yep.
whatever. I remember that we went back to that looking spot a couple of times, and then I don't know if it was after the second or third time, we decided that we were running pretty low on water.
You
And
got to talk about the billy goat shit.
I do remember where we can find some water. And at the time, we've been looking at the bottom of this draw or this gully or whatever for a couple of days. And so in our mind, it wasn't as bad. So you and Joe decided that you were going to go down there and grab some water because we all didn't need to go down there. And that was also going to be a pivotal moment of the trip. What happened when you guys went down that hill?
I try to block that out as much as possible. So we can't we have to back up just a half a step.
Mm-hmm.
We're scouting, we're looking at this. So we're looking at this top and we go, okay, there's water here, there's water here, there's water here. What we didn't know when we were scouting this and looking at it is that those water creeks, drainage, those were seasonal runoffs. And there's no water anywhere that we found. Half a day walking around, no water. We brought enough water. Okay, we're fine because we're dumb and packed everything up. See, okay, hey, right down there's water right down there. From the top looking down, everything. I realized this in Alaska. When you live in the East, your scale visually gets construed. When you go west, you go to big country areas, you can't grasp distance like you can wherever east of the Mississippi or right next to the Mississippi for you. And you can't grasp distance. So we're sitting there and we're like, oh yeah, that's not that bad. Yeah, it's steep and yeah, it's gonna suck for a couple minutes to get up and down, but it'll be fine. No, it took us 45 minutes to get down and an hour and a half to get up and we call it billy goat shit. And we took our bows and we were sitting there, hands and knees, move the bow up, crawl up, grab the bow, move the bow up, crawl up. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
It was something that Adam and I we were watching you guys do it the whole time because we're up on the glassing point. And we were just kind of looking down. It's like, what is taking them so long? And I learned very quickly to not to say that out loud when you guys got back up. Just the level of huffing and puffing and cussing that was happening. I was like, that was probably harder than it looked.
Yeah, and then what? An hour later, when you and I kind of busted off again on our own and went to the other side, we're 500 yards from camp. What'd we find?
Something that was liquid and potable. Drink.
Yeah, and moving.
Yeah, and
yeah, I tried to block most of that out. There's
that water and the water you went to looked the same on the map, and we had
yes.
What we're gonna do. It's like, we know there's water down there. Let's just go down there. And then later that day, we hopped to the other side of the ridge, and you and I came across flowing clear water. And I was like, I don't even know if we want to tell Joe we found this.
Learning curves. I mean, every time we go out in the woods, it's learning curves. That we had and these trips are, especially when you don't get an elk, and we didn't get an elk, and we still haven't gotten an elk. We've been going on expensive camping trips for years.
Way closer.
There's two types of fun,
but looks the same on the scoreboard.
Yeah, there's two types of fun. This is something I've been seeing recently, and elk hunting comes up every time whenever I see it. There's type A fun and there's type B fun. Have you been seeing this? Do you know the difference between type A and type B? So essentially the bottom line of type A fun versus type B fun is type A fun is fun while you're doing it. A roller coaster is type A fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a blast while I'm doing it. And you may or may not, remember it years down the road, but you had a blast while you're doing it. A water slide, something like that. That's type A fun.
Mm-hmm.
Type B fun sucks while you're doing it. But then you look back fondly on it and you go, man, and it is, it may or may not be life changing, but it sticks with.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think hunting in general is a lot of type B fun. Whether it's deer hunting, sitting like here, I live in the state of Tennessee. Opening day of whitetail archery season is in late September. The velvet hunt is in, which is 2 days, August, which is a month away from right now. Archery season's 90 plus degrees, 100% humidity, and you're fucking miserable.
Bugs,
Miserable.
ticks,
And
mosquitoes.
I, yeah, oh yeah, the bugs, it's awful. And I look forward to it every year.
Hmm.
That's type B fun.
For sure.
And it,
You can extend that beyond just the hunting because we think the same thing about tack. In fact,
oh yeah, tax the same way.
was it this year? Maybe it was last year. Oh no, it was this year. I missed the second tack, and that's a whole other series of videos. But she made a comment that stuck with me that she said, "You guys complain a lot when you come back from shooting the courses. Every year you come back and you're just complaining." But then she went on those courses this past one in Tennessee, and then made the comment afterwards, "You guys aren't complaining nearly enough for what you're going through out there," because she experienced it. And I was like, I thought we were complaining a decent amount because, yeah, it sucks. It is tough. We're not in great moods when we come off that course. Even if we outshot the other person, which we go back and forth on, it's just a miserable time, and you gotta recover before you can even eat. You're right, those we have a lot of type B fun together.
I think there's something that we're, I don't go to therapy, but I think a therapist would weigh in on here, and any therapist in the comments, go ahead and weigh in on here. You could make an argument that you and me are just trauma bonded, uh, and that's kind of the core of our relationship.
Yeah,
We just do shitty things all the time, and then get up, and as soon as it's done, I mean, we plan our next year's elk trip as soon as we get in the car to leave from that year's elk trip.
but even when I came down to your place a few weeks back, and all we were doing was 14-hour days of manual labor prepping some land for hunting and for other projects you had going.
Yep.
That sucked a lot. Very hot, very miserable.
It was miserable. Yeah.
They're both in the construction trade, so it's not like we're, new to physical or manual labor. But I booked my trip and took time away from making money to come down there knowing what I was going to be put through. And yeah, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. And maybe there are some therapists that probably shouldn't weigh in on this because I don't want to hear the answers. Definitely some masochism in there, but yeah, there's some trauma for sure.
Maybe we'll do these longer later on in future episodes or whatever. But this one, I mean, we've been talking for a minute here. So we might as well wrap this up. We went through tack and kind of how we met. We didn't really talk much about tack other than that first year because there wasn't much to say other than I don't know. I broke my sight. That was upsetting. But that's why we do tack. Tack at the end of the day, it's built to be hard, just like we were just talking about. It's designed to be hard. It's designed to upset you. It's designed to be shots that you arguably would never take in the wild. It's designed to make the hike. It's called the Total Archery Challenge, TAC. That's why it's called that. It is prepping for Western hunt. That's why TAC was created. The owners of TAC created to prep you for those opportunities, to put you through those tumultuous situations and test your gear.
Mhm.
And I found out, okay, well, my gear was lacking. So thankfully I mean, I went on an elk hunt that same year, but I knew what to expect, what to bring just in case one of these things happened. And I put my gear through hell. Uh, and that's why we shoot what we shoot. And we'll, maybe we in other videos and other things, we'll go into what we shoot and why we shoot it and all this kind of stuff. Shout out to the outdoor group for the ambassadorship. We've been on an elk hunt 4 times. We've been over one story. We don't have an elk. Why do you keep coming back? Why do we keep coming back? Other than the type B fun and we're masochists.
It was a big part of it. One, I want the meat. So I still haven't, I mean, I had it when I was younger or whatever. I still want to be able to taste it. So that's part of it. Probably also one of the reasons why we're taking rifles into the woods this fall instead of our bows. Because every single year we've been elk hunting, we would have got someone with a rifle. But I do like the getting out into the woods. I do. I mean, that's my church. the stories, the camaraderie, whether it's, just you and I, or if Joe or, my kids come or anything like that. I love the opportunity to get out in the woods and the thrill of that hunt. And it is something to look back on and be like, yeah, it sucked, but not everybody out there is doing what we do. Most of the people in my circle of friends think I'm insane for even wanting to go on these trips, let alone keep doing it to myself. So I get that's another, I guess, pride point for me personally.
Doing something hard because it's hard. Yeah, I think it's important. Putting yourself through tough things with the potential of success in however you measure success. Uh, at the end of the day, I mean, if you really want to put words to it, we're successful every year. We have a successful trip every year. If your only metric is success means getting an elk, then no, we've never been successful. We've failed every time. But I don't leave that trip thinking we failed ever.
No, and that's something I've actually drilled into my children, and not just from hunting, but even in sports or in their personal lives or school. You either win or you learn. You only fail when you give up. And every single time we've been successful because we learned a ton. You'd think we wouldn't learn lessons that many years going into it, but there's different things we come up across that's like, oh, well, now we know for next time. And sometimes there's lessons we do have to relearn. But I think a big part of that success when that does happen is going to be that much sweeter. Because if you look at somebody who's just going to walk somebody out there with an elk tied to a chain and tied to a tree and you get to go shoot it, yeah, you got the elk meat. But did you win? Was that a success? No. When we actually get out there, and for the people who have been successful enough to do it, good on you, we actually can take an elk off of public land that we had no idea was there and just looked at a map and went out there and put boots to the ground. That success is going to mean way more than any of the other scenarios. And that's why I keep going back is striving for that moment.
And I tend to mirror that. I can't be broken. I'm a stubborn, to put it lightly, individual, and I can't wait to go back. We leave here, and it's the end of July right now, so we got what, 2.5 months, almost 3 months right now, which sounds far away, but you and I both know this year's been flying by. So I'm looking forward to going back. We may actually have a third person this time. And depending on who that third person is, we're gonna have an episode with them about their stories in one of these. So, well, in the meantime, let's.
I
I
am
mean, I think we covered it.
for this year. I'm actually looking forward to the point where I'm actually cutting my bear hunting trip short to be able to get out of the Missouri woods and get out to Colorado with you and chase the wapiti.
Wonderful. Well, Brian, great talking to you, and stay tuned.
Yep, can't wait for it.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.